Sad news, everybody. This show's gonna start off with kind of a sad story, bad story. I swear to you, it is 100% the truth. Arch Advocate Show, everybody. Thank you for joining. It's Wednesday. I want to thank. Let me get to the thank yous here in just a second. Let me just break down the news for you. So I was out walking. I was out in town today when the news came to me that there's not a single roll of duct tape to be bought in this village that I'm in. Now listen, you know damn well. You know, but I don't care if you're a man or a woman, boy or a girl, gay, lesbian, trans, bisexual, which would denote that there are in fact only two sexes, LGTB, QB, CB, DB, DB, whatever, whoever you are, you know damn well that when you reach for the duct tape, it means that you need duct tape right then, right? It's one of those magical things. It's like JB Weld or super glue or duct tape. You know, like when you reach for that thing, it means that you need it right now. Something's got to be fixed right now. So I go out into this village. This is the kind of barbaric conditions I'm living in, people. All right? There's no duct tape in this town. You might say, like, well, Pete, why don't you just go online and order it and they'll mail it to you? Well, I'm sure that I will. The problem is the aforementioned necessity. When you reach for the duct tape, it means that you need duct tape, right? Not later, not 2 days from now, not when the mailman delivers it, or woman. It means you need duct tape right now and I can't buy it. There is no duct tape. There's none. All right? I'm sorry to bum you out with that story, all right? Because I'm sure you've all had that moment where, I don't know, maybe you were in your younger days, maybe you were a teenager back when you were poor, and you were driving that piece of crap car, right? The damn muffler came undone and it was dragging behind the car, making all kind of noise. What'd you do? You went home and you went in your dad's garage or whatever. You went in the trunk drawer, you went to the place where the duct tape is and you grabbed the damn duct tape and you taped that thing up to the innards of that car. Problem solved. All right? Maybe it was some sort of leaky pipe or something like that. You just duct tape the hell out of it. Duct tape is a magical thing. And I don't know where you call it in the region where you live. Some people call it duct, D-U-C-T, tape. Some people call it 100-mile-an-hour tape. Some people just call it gray tape. Even if it's red. You've seen the red duct tape, right? No matter what it is, you know that when you need it, you need it. You need it right then. You don't need it 10 minutes from now. You need it right then. I don't have it. I don't have any duct tape. Damn it. Anyways, I want to thank... onto a lighter note. My dad died on Monday, from what I'm told. So I want to thank listener Bad Wolf, Ian. Bad Wolf sent me a PayPal, left a quite significant little tip in the jar. And I want to thank you for that because that literally that's gonna make the difference between Christmas presents and no Christmas presents. Seriously. So I thank you for that, Bad Wolf. Look. I'm going to talk about my dad dying, and the reason I'm going to, listen, if you listen to other podcasts, you know, sometimes, you know, or maybe even if you listen to, morning radio or something like that, you know, a lot of times people aren't going to talk about, the things that they go through, right? And I don't, I can understand it. Nobody wants to be a bummer. That's how you lose listeners, right? If you bum people out, they're not going to want to listen to you anymore. It's like, why? If somebody associates the sound of your voice with an unpleasant feeling, that's a good way to lose people, right? But the fact is, we've talked about this before on the show. The fact is that man, this is life. It's rough. There's bad stuff that happens. There's good stuff that happens, and it's you have to join in the journey. We have a listener on the show, or I don't know if he's still a listener. Given a message that he wrote the other day, but he had a daughter that was born halfway. She was born at the halfway point. Like a full-term pregnancy is 40 weeks, and his daughter was born at, I believe it was 22 weeks. Like that's a problem. That's something like, if that happens to you, it's like, dude, you're not gonna have any room in your head to think about anything else. You know what I mean? Like, it's just gonna be a bummer. It's gonna be hard. You're just gonna sit there and you're gonna lay in your bed and pour sweat and worry. And that's crappy, man. Like that's a terrible, you know, that's real life, man. That's where the, you know, when your shoes hit the trail, it's like that's where it is. That's where life is. And if you can't, you know, if you can't empathize with other people, right, and be there for other people, you know what I mean, and allow yourself to receive when it's your turn, when things go wrong in your life, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where I was going with that, but like community, right? You have to stay in community. You have to be tied in with other people. You have to allow yourself to feel other people's sorrow, and you have to allow other people to feel your sorrow, right? Unfortunately, this show isn't going to be about sorrow. In fact, the problem that I'm having is the lack of sorrow. My father was a guy that left when I was 1.5, right? He had a beautiful wife, brand new baby, a brand new house in Mira Mesa. Mira Mesa is a suburb of San Diego. It's still within city limits of San Diego. It's actually in the city of San Diego, but it's, you know, it's just a little town. It's very near Miramar, right, where they film Top Gun and all that. It's pretty close to that. And the thing is I'm going to talk about like kind of what I'm going through feeling wise. Let me just start off by saying, like, when I found out that he died, which was yesterday, I think. Maybe he died Sunday. I don't know. He died either Sunday or Monday. But like the first thing that I felt was relief. And the reason for that is because I had said for many years, I was like, you know, like if my dad died and I didn't know about it, like you know, like if nobody told me, and then years later somebody said, oh, by the way, you know, like if my mom called me or something, oh, by the way, your dad died, I'd always tell people, like, I don't think I would feel anything. I didn't know the guy, you know, and everything I knew about him was bad. I can't really think of anything nice to say. Well, he was a pretty good blues guitarist, right, on his own. Oh boy, he's got a Martin guitar. I wonder who's going to get that. Probably some of his scavenger acquaintances are probably going to take that. But he wasn't a good person, you know. He wasn't the kind of guy. And I'd always said, like, you know, I think if he died, I'm kind of scared, because I honestly believe in my heart that I would feel nothing. And that's a problem. Like, that's like, your father dies and you don't feel anything, like that would denote like you've got some problems of your own. And that's what I was scared of. I was scared that I was right. I was scared that, like, when I find out that my dad has gone, right? Because he was in his 70s or whatever. How old am I? 45, 55, 65? Yeah, so he was like in his early 70s, I think. Mid 70s, something like that. I was scared that I was right. And at the same time, I was scared that perhaps I would feel a rush of emotion. Like when my brother was murdered, I remember that. Like my mom called me at my house, told me the news, and I took it very, like, clinically. Like, oh, okay, all right. So David got killed. I need to go over to my stepmom's house. I need to go over to David's house. And I hung up the phone, put on my shoes, got in my car, and drove 15 minutes over to their house. Just, you know, listened to the radio, smoked a couple cigarettes, just very, very normal. And when I walked into the house, there's all kinds of people there, loved ones and friends of his and friends of the family, and everything else. And already, like on the floor, there were all of these like collage, like pictures of David. Pictures of when he was a baby all the way up until just days before he died. Or was killed, rather. Right? So you have to kind of picture, like, the news didn't hit me. When I received the news, it didn't hit me. Right? But when I walked into that room, and all the people were there, and the mood was what it was, and the pictures were all on the floor laid out in, like in those collages, I looked down on the floor, and I began weeping so hard that I couldn't breathe. Right? Like, for those of you who've never cried that hard, it's the exact same thing. The exact same thing is when you laugh so hard that you can't breathe. So if you've ever been there, it's the exact same thing. Physically, it's the exact same thing. Chemically, it's the exact same thing, right? The only one different, there's just one little thing that isn't there and something else is in its place, and that instead of joy, it's sorrow. But everything else is the exact same thing, and I wept so hard, and I couldn't catch my breath, and I passed out. I lost consciousness because I couldn't breathe, right? So I was afraid that one day I might find out that my dad had passed away, and perhaps I was covering up, like perhaps I was hiding my own emotions so well that even I couldn't see them. You know what I mean? Like maybe it was such a case of false bravado, fake bravery. Like, I'm not going to feel anything when that guy dies. Like maybe I had lied so well that I even deceived myself. And when I found out that my father had died, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace. But not peace like, I'm sure he's in a better place, because I don't think he's in a better place. But peace of like, oh no, I truly don't. I truly don't feel hardly anything. I mean, I feel some things, but not like, oh, my dad died. That sense of peace is like, oh no, I was right. When I told people like I wouldn't feel anything, like I was right. Whew. You know what I mean? Now, what does that make me? Like, does that make me a monster? Because here's the thing. This is what I'm struggling with. It's like, that has to be something psychologically. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be something behind it. And what it is, like, I don't know. I don't know what that makes me. Does it make me a sociopath? You know what I mean? Like, that is the thought that is worrying. The fact that what I feel is not what a normal person should feel when their father passes away. And I don't want to sit here and shit on the guy, right? But there's some things that you need to know, all right? My dad, my father, is one of the biggest victims of the 1960s and 70s, the sexual revolution followed up by the inebriation revolution, where everybody was just getting, the 60s. Like, I was born in 1973. My dad was, I don't know, I think 31 or 32, something like that. Like, he was a grown-ass man. He had served in the Navy for a couple of years, went down to Guam during the Vietnam War and smoked a bunch of pot, and then came back. So when I say Vietnam War, he was not he was a veteran of the Vietnam War, but not really, right? He didn't actually go to Vietnam. He went to Guam during Vietnam. And then he came back, and it was like, hey man, it's the 60s. Everybody's doing drugs. Everybody's just running through ass, just banging away. Hey, if it moves, F it. Let's do some drugs, man. We're gonna expand our minds, man. Like that was the 60s, and it was the sexual revolution and divorce. It was like, hey man, hey, if you're married and you're not happy, if you're just not, skipping around the countryside like a calf loosed from its stall, just skipping. If you're not happy in your marriage, just stop being married, man. Don't you know it's the 60s? God is dead, man. Didn't you read your, who was it who said that? Who said God is dead? Who was that? That was, it's going to come to me in a little while. But the guy that said God is dead, like that all happened then. Right? The postmodern era had begun where it was like, oh, there's no God. God is dead. Hey, if you're not happy in your marriage, just stop being married, man. It's the 60s. Come on. Everybody's doing it. And my dad, like, he bought into that philosophy, hook, line, and sinker. He loved it. He was young, good looking, strong. Like not strong like a bodybuilder, but like he was strong up until the day he died, and he spent his whole life like on cocaine and Irish whiskey. But if you ever saw him wearing a pair of shorts and see his legs and be like, dude, those are the legs of a 19-year-old kid. He was, like he had a strong body. That's where I get my, I've told you, I've bragged about it a number of times, like I never get sick. Very rarely do I get sick. And that becomes a problem because when I do get sick, I become like a hypochondriac because they're like, oh my God, am I dying? It's because I have such good health. And I get that from my dad and my mom, oddly enough. And this guy was he spent his whole life running away. Now look, I've made this observation before. There's the fallacy of the good man. There's no such thing as a good man. Right? I've used the examples of Martin Luther King Jr., right? Martin Luther King Jr.'s good work changed the world for the better. The world will never be the same place because of that man. The world is a better, much better place because of Martin Luther King Jr. And yet, he was a poonhound. He chased ass and he couldn't stop it. And he was like a religious leader. You know what I mean? He was I can't remember. He's a pastor or reverend, something like that. But he had a problem. Couldn't keep it in his pants. And his namesake, Martin Luther, who saved the world, right? He saved the world from the Catholic Church getting too powerful. Right? It was another period of the Catholic Church's history where they were going crazy with power and money. And Martin Luther stood up and said, all right, here's the 99 Thesis. Everybody, you are free. You are free to know God on your own. The church is not the proxy. The church is not the go-between. There is one mediator between you and God the Father, and that is Jesus Christ, and you need to take your issues to Jesus Christ. Period. Amen. Dude saved the world. Dude saved the world. And yet, horrific anti-Semite. Like, really bad. Because, it was during a time where, like if you were an anti-Semite, like, nobody, like, it was normal. Everybody was. You know what I mean? But I digress. You can give me any example of any human being on the planet, right? Save Jesus Christ. And this is where it gets really weird, and I'm sorry if this is offensive to everybody, but you know it, you've read it yourself. Right? The rich young ruler goes to Jesus and says, good master, what good thing must I do to gain entrance into the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus says, he doesn't answer the question. He says, wait a minute. Why are you calling me good? Nobody's good. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Like, that's not something, by the way, just in case you're wondering, that is not a passage of scripture that you need to come to an immediate absolute on. That is something that you need to meditate in your own prayer life. You need to and read books on that passage and get as much perspective as you can on that particular passage. But what I'm saying is like, look, there's no such thing as a good man, except for Jesus, who, you know, as it is that I have meditated and prayed and studied on that particular passage of Scripture, I've come to the conclusion that yes, indeed, he was a good man, and that what he was saying was quite a bit more profound. But what I'm saying is there's no such thing as a good man. So I don't look at my father and think like, oh, you are not a good man, therefore I don't like you. Therefore I am indifferent and I don't have any emotions for you. It's like, no, that's not where it comes from. That's not what I'm getting at. The problem, and I have a huge problem with this, like so much so that like I should probably, you know, like once I'm rich and famous and all that other stuff, like I should probably get a therapist and talk about this, because like one of the biggest problems that I have with the human condition, one of the biggest problems I have with people is the large majority of human beings, a group of people that represent the overwhelming and vast majority of human beings. And I'm talking about the type of people who cannot apologize. There are a large swath, the majority of people in the world do not have a mechanism so that like when things start going wrong, or when they feel like hatred in their heart, or anger, or sadness, or depression, or any of the bad things, they don't have the mechanism where they can sit down and say, okay, now I know that there's mitigating circumstances here. I know that there are external things going on, other people involved. Certainly they all play a factor in it, but I need to sit down, close my eyes, meditate, and pray, and find out where it is in this scenario that I am the asshole. And after they come to that conclusion, then they go to other people and say, look, I'm here to own my portion of whatever real estate this is that we're standing on. You know what I mean? The majority of people do not have a mechanism where they can go to their brother, their sister, their co-worker, their wives and children and husbands and other people and just say, look, you have your own mess, but here's the part of this real estate of anger that we're on, or real estate of disappointment, or whatever real estate you're standing on, and say, listen, I have meditated on this, and this is where I can see that I am wrong, and I am sorry. The word apologize does not mean to express sorrow, by the way. The word apologize literally means to explain the scenario. To explain. To just explain like what happened or what's going on or whatever. And the expression of sorrow should be somewhere in there, like, hey, look, here's what happened, and listen, I'm really very sorry for my behavior. I'm sorry about it. Like, I've really thought about this, and I behaved badly, and I said some things that I wish I could take back, but of course there's no such thing as a take back. I'm here to let you know, like, I'm really thought about this, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to try to become a better man by doing whatever I can to ensure that this never happens again in the future, because I can see that it hurt you, and I don't want to hurt other people. There's a large group of people that don't have that mechanism, and it pisses me off to no end. It's one of the worst, like it's one of the worst qualities that I can see in a person. And I think the reason why I have such a huge problem with that concept is, one, because I can see the devastation that it causes. Oh, the world would be so much better of a place, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it have been so much better if Bill Clinton in the 1990s just would have came on TV and said, listen, everybody, you know what? I did have sex with Monica Lewinsky. I'm sorry. I won't do that again. I cheated on my wife. I betrayed my oaths. I disappointed the American people. I'm very sorry. Right? I just have this thing, man. I just, you know, when it starts barking, boy, it needs to be fed. What do you want from me? Right? Remember that? Remember Bill Clinton? Like, he was young-ish, good-looking guy, right? He was certainly better looking than George Bush. Younger and better looking than Ronald Reagan, right? The last time there was a good-looking president, it was JFK, and boy, he had an appetite on him, didn't he? Ooh-wee. But my point is like, I can see the devastation that it causes when people don't have that mechanism. It ruins everything. And the reason I can see it so clearly and it's so vivid for me and such a big problem for me is because, like, this dude, I tried, like, I remember when I got into the Marine Corps, it's like, okay, cool, I have a steady job and I've got money. Like, back then it was like, starting off as a private first class, I think it was like $1,000 a month, but it was like, yeah, but I wasn't paying rent or buying food or anything. It was like, it's just $1,000 that I had. So I bought a car. That was like one of the first things I did. And like, as soon as I had a car, it was like one of the first things I did was I tried to establish a relationship with my biological father. And I tried for years. And there was just nothing there. There wasn't bad things there. I'm trying to tell you, there was like nothing there. This was a guy who just spent his whole life drunk on Irish whiskey and high on 70s and 80s cocaine. There was nothing. It was like speaking to I want to say vegetable, but there's a word for that one. Somebody remember what was that? Remember that Chandra Levy case? That lady in, no, not Chandra Levy. What was the lady's name that was like, she no longer could use her mind, and they wanted to pull the plug on her? It was down there in Florida. Was it Chandra Levy? I can't remember, but it's like talking. It was like talking to somebody who was in a coma, only their eyes were open. And they were responsive somehow. You know what I mean? Could not get through to this guy. And to the point, it's like, like I tried, and then finally, like, I got so frustrated, I was like, you know what, I'll tell you what. And I didn't say this to him out loud, but like what I was thinking was, how about you just show me that you've looked back on your life and you see that you have sired 4 children and abandoned every single one of them. And that there's something in you that recognizes that was wrong. That the postmodernist lie and the lie of the Enlightenment, that you bought into it and you were deceived by that, and that there's something in you that recognizes that you brought souls into the world and then failed to raise them. Is there anything in there hello, McFly, is there anybody home? Is there anybody behind the wheel? Surely you have to look at the fact that you have 4 children and 2 ex-wives, 2 or 3, I think. You have this whole wake of disaster behind you, of broken and shattered lives. Not to mention the fact, like, listen, my dad, again, I don't want to sit here and shit on him, but let me give you an idea of who this guy was. He used to burn my older brother, Mike, with cigarettes. I remember it. I remember one day we were at a park and my brother did something wrong, and my dad his response was burn him with a cigarette, torture him. You know what I mean? Like, this is who this guy was. And leaving your kid, this is the thing. Like, I just had, like, my wife has been pregnant for 2 years solid, right? We had one baby, was it 16 months ago? A year of August, September, October, November, December. So this month it'll be 16 months. So 16 months ago, my wife gave birth. And then about another month ago, my wife gave birth again. So do the math. My wife was pregnant for 2 years, right? Solid. I have 2 sons now. It absolutely baffles me how it is that people can just walk out on their kids and their wives. It's even more baffling to me when there's, there's like all these like sports guys that just run around just banging hoes and just leaving. They're just littering the planet with human beings. Bringing babies into the world without the protection of a father. Without the instruction of a father. Without the provision of a father. It absolutely baffles me. I look at it, it's like, okay, do you not understand? Okay, so so maybe you're an evolutionary guy. You believe in evolution, right? Oh, there's a big bang and out of nothing came everything. Okay, fine. Then we must observe biological law, right? Biological law would tell us that human beings are a mate-for-life species. Are we not? Have we not been for the entire time? Have we not been a mate for all of recorded history right up until the 1960s? Were we not a mate-for-life species? Do you not understand that you have to have both parents? And everything that we know about the significance of parents, everything that we know, every bit of scientific findings and with this new, this newfangled psychology that we've found that, one of the primary indicators of whether a person is going to be successful in their life or not is, were both parents present? It's the number one thing that people look for. When psychologists do whatever it is that they do, the number one thing when it comes to this sort of thing, the number one thing that they look for, were both biological parents present? No? Okay, well, I can pretty much tell you why this has gone so horribly wrong. With little other information. I don't need to know why the father wasn't there. It doesn't matter. Maybe he died. Maybe he was a good man and he just got hit by a damn truck. But the fact that the father wasn't there is why you are such an F-up. Right? That's the first thing that they look for. And then you get into the biological information and everything else. And it's like, dude, you have to raise your kids. I look at my son, like, look, I can't understand it. Or maybe I can understand it and I just need to go like get a PhD in psychology and then I'll understand it. But like looking at it right now, it's like I have two I have a 16-month-old baby and one that's not even 1 month old. And I look at those babies and I think, how does somebody just say, oh, you know what? I know I need to stay here and protect you. Make sure that you have food and provisions. Make sure that you have a life of the mind, that you enjoy reading, right? That you enjoy learning. I need to make sure that you have these qualities about you, that you're polite, that you know how to throw a punch and defend yourself, right? That you have confidence so that when you grow up and you want to go meet that girl, that you have the confidence to walk up to her and say, hey, how about we go get a slice of pizza and a Coke? Right? Like I look at them and it's just like, how do you just walk away? I don't get it. And yet, that's exactly the culture that we have built in America, where it's just like, you know what, I'm not happy. I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel very comfortable, and I need to be comfortable. I need me. God is dead. God is dead, man. There is no God. There's no reason for me to stick around and be beholden to these kids. I need to be happy. As long as I'm happy, I'm good. Because God is dead, man. There's no repercussions. Nothing bad's gonna happen to me, man. I'm just gonna go off and I'm gonna go bang that 20-year-old girl that works behind the counter at Starbucks, and then I'm gonna do a big fat line of Coke. And then I think I'll take a big ass loan, buy a Corvette. I need to be happy, man. I don't understand it. I do not understand how America got, excuse me, everybody. I don't understand how America got on that tear. Just like, yeah, don't worry about the family, man. Don't worry about your kids. Your wife will get on welfare, man. There'll be food stamps. They'll be fine, dude. Just go, man. Have fun. You need to be happy, man. You need to be happy. And it is that exact thing that my father lived. It was his doctrine. I have never seen in my life, and I've seen a lot, right? I've been in Christian circles my whole life. I have never seen somebody run so hard away from facing God. Now, I could qualify that statement, but it would take hours. I have never seen somebody so unwilling to fight the demons. You want to know how to get defeated by demons? Cower. Buy their product of cowardice. Cower to them. That's how you lose. You want to know how to beat demons? It's real easy. You stand up and you fight. And it's not hard because demons are weaklings. They're cowards. That's why they promote cowardice, is because that's the merchandise that they have, because that's what they are. This guy never fought his demons. Never. This guy never looked in the mirror. This guy never went to the people that he left in shambles and went back to them and said, hey, you know what, man, listen, not for nothing, I know this isn't going to help, but look, it was the 60s and the 70s, I was real high, I was real drunk, right, and I made a lot of really bad decisions that affected a lot of people, and although this isn't going to help, I just thought it would be important for you to understand that I have meditated on this, and I have had moments of self-reflection where I realized, like, this thing that I did was wrong, and that the right thing would have been, X. And I feel sorrow when I think about what kind of piece of shit human being I was. I don't understand how people don't have that mechanism. And that's why, like, now that my dad is dead, it's just like, yeah, you know what? Like, I don't feel bad, because it's like, dude, you lived your whole life. You were given everything, right? You were in your 20s at the very height of the Industrial Revolution. You know what I mean? You were in your 20s, maybe early 30s, in the early 70s, where all you had to do was just have a job, and you could buy a house in San Diego. Your wife, who was your high school sweetheart, who turned down offers from Playboy to pose, you know what I mean? Like, his wife, my mother, back in the day, like, she wasn't just good looking. She was like getting offers from Playboy, like, hey, you're a good looking girl, want to make a little dough? Thank God my mom had a good Christian upbringing and said no, but like, that's what my dad had. My dad literally had a girl that could have been in Playboy and was married to her. You had everything, and you somehow managed to fuck it up. How do you do that? How do you do that and not understand that you screwed up? And now that he's dead, it's like, dude, you lived your whole life. You have no song. You have you have no story. There's nothing there. There is nothing about your life that anybody is ever going to talk about. You never did anything. It's almost as if you were given an entire life, and yet you somehow managed to not live it. You spent your whole life hiding behind a bottle of booze and what I'm sure was very high quality cocaine in the 70s and 80s. Because, by the way, you can't get. Ironically, since almost all of the cocaine in America comes through San Diego, ironically, you cannot get good cocaine in San Diego. I know I tried to become a coke addict in my early 30s. I couldn't do it. It was just too much. That's a drug. Man, I don't know how people do that drug, man. I gave it the old college try. That drug kicked my ass in just a couple of months. I was just like, all right, okay, you win. You win. See you later. This guy hid. He hid from his emotions. He hid from his consciousness. You know what I mean? His conscience. He hid from his manhood his entire life. All of it. Now he's dead. I don't feel anything, or I should say, I mean, I do, as I explained before, like I do feel some things. It's more about me than it is him. I'm worried about me because I'm thinking like, my father just died, and I'm concerned about my lack of feeling. I'm concerned about my own mental health. You know what I mean? Because that guy, whatever. But he's dead, and I've got these people on Facebook that are like, because I made the comment because a couple of weeks ago I'd found out that he was in hospice care, and I put a Facebook post up. I was like, yeah, this guy's gonna die alone. He's gonna die the same way he lived his life, alone. He's gonna die alone, because I'm just that certain level of asshole where I would post something like that so that his acquaintances could read that. Some of them wrote back, they're like, oh no, he's not going to die alone. We're going to be there with him. By the way, all of these people, they're all his friends from Alcoholics Anonymous. My dad died surrounded by strangers. That's what dying alone. If you're listening, you assholes, I wasn't saying like he was going to die in the middle of the desert where no people were. That's not what I meant by alone. So you people write me like, oh no, we were in the room with him. Okay, you got me. No, he died alone because you were in the room with him. You never knew him. Even though I've already told you, I bet you couldn't guess how many children that he had. Even though I've already said it in this podcast. Right? And if you could, good for you, but what were their names? You think you knew him? How are you going to say that you knew a man and you don't know his kid's name? You know what I mean? I have friends on this podcast, people I've never met in real life. I know their kids' names. Do you understand that? Because that's, you know what I mean? Like if you say you know somebody and if they have a family, then you know. Saying that you know somebody, but you don't know how many family members they have, or how many children they have, or what their names are. It's like, no, you don't. You don't know that person. You know of them. You may be acquainted with them, but you don't know them. You know what I mean? My dad died the way that he lived his life. He died alone. This guy was alone his entire life because he chose that. And so when I reflect on this, because listen, it is hard to be married, right? I get in arguments with my wife. As a matter of fact, just like last night. And I don't mean to put my business out in the streets, but like sometimes me and my wife, we get into some arguments about stuff, and it's particularly difficult because. She speaks English very well, but she's not mastered it. And I don't, I'm lazy, so I don't, I've not learned how to speak Albanian like a piece of garbage. I need to fix that, by the way. Sometimes we get in arguments, man, and there's some ugly things that are said. Things that I regret. Things that she ends up regretting. Right? But when I woke up this morning, When I woke up this morning, I was like, man, I need to pray. And I need to go to God and say, listen, I'm screwing up here. I cannot afford to fail at this marriage. I can't fail at this. There's too much at stake. I've just brought 2 human souls into the world. They need me. They need to be able to see what a man does in a marriage. That a man gets down on his knees and cries out and says, God, please come and fix these broken places in me. Because if it was just like, oh, this is my girlfriend and, we're just going to break up, like that would be one thing. But it's like, no, this is my wife and those are my sons and they need me. And I don't understand how it is that, like, I can understand that. I get it. Like, I look at this situation, it's like, whoa, okay, I need to be a better husband. Sure, my wife had her part in what went down, in the words that were exchanged last night. She had her part. She had her own, assignment of, whatever guilt or whatever you want to call it. But I had mine. And that's the only thing that I can take before God is my stuff. Say, God, please help me. Why do I need this help? Because there's these 2 little boys who depend on me, and I'm not going to fail at this. I don't understand how other people don't see it the same way. You know what I mean? It's like when you go to other cultures, like in the culture I'm in right now. I think I may have expressed this once before, but okay, you know how when you go to the grocery store, there's a real simple cultural difference, right? You go to the grocery store like you've done your whole life, and you did, when your mom took you to the grocery store. When you get all your things, what do? You go to the line, and you see, you try to pick the line that you think is going to get you out of the store the quickest, right? Either the shortest or whatever. And there's an order to that. And it goes like this. It's first come, first serve, right? If you start heading towards that line and somebody else gets there before you do, although it's going to piss you off, you understand, like, that person was there first and this is how it works. First come, first serve, baby. It makes sense, doesn't it? Everybody knows the rules, but in the place where I live, it doesn't work that way. It's based on who has the most stuff, right? The fewer things you have, the faster the teller is going to... You can be standing there in line for 15 minutes with your gigantic, basket of all the stuff that you need to buy. And you can get all the way up there and you can put all of the things in your cart on the counter to be rung up. And I'm not kidding here. The lady will start ringing them up. And if somebody runs up and all they have is like a pack of gum, the lady will stop what she's doing. And she'll ring that person up and take their money and give them their change and then resume. It's the weirdest thing. Because as an American, I'm just standing there going, get the F out of it. I was here first, dummy. Like, it's my turn. You can go stand in line. You know what I mean? It's the weirdest. It's like a cultural difference thing. And there's some cultural differences where it's like, I don't understand how you people have come to this conclusion, that this is the right way to do it. I understand that everybody's in on it and that you have a certain flow and everybody gets it and everybody knows how to work around it. But I don't understand how you've come to this. I don't understand it. I'm not saying it's wrong. As a matter of fact, with mathematics, like I can sit here with my clinical mind and think, yeah, I can, I don't agree with it, but I can certainly see that kind of makes sense in a certain sort of way. But at the same time, it's like, but I don't understand it because it's not right. It's not right. It's first come, first serve. You know what I mean? That's what's right. And so when I see people that are just like, oh, F it, I'm just going to leave my family. I'm going to leave my children because, there's a pretty good chance that the pink-haired lady, the 22-year-old co-ed down there at Starbucks, I think I could bang her. She's been giving me some winky eyes. I think I could bang her, and by the way, I kind of just want to buy a bag of mushrooms and go out to Joshua Tree for a week and just trip balls, man. And these restrictions that my family places on me, I can't handle it. I don't want this much responsibility, man. This is tough. So I'm just going to leave my children exposed to the wolves, exposed to all the abuse and danger and lack of instruction and destruction of confidence and everything. I'm just going to leave because I got to be happy, man. It's like, yeah, I don't understand I don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand how you've come to this conclusion that this would be the right thing to do. Dude, don't leave your kids. Whoever you are, you may not leave your children. You may not leave your children. That's against the rules. You brought them into the world. You protect them. You guide them. You do it on a moment-by-moment basis, meaning you have to live in that same house. And if you can't figure out what's wrong between you and your wife, you need to come to Jesus. Oh, Pete, I don't want to hear your bullshit. You're the one destroying Western civilization. You're the reason why we have so many people running around going, oh, I got this dick and balls in my pants, but by golly, I can't figure out what that means. I can't figure out why that's significant. God damn it, I can't figure out which bathroom to go into because I don't know what this dick and balls means. I'm going around calling everybody Nazi, 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 and everybody's a racist. It's like, that's you. You want to know where those kids come from? You want to know why the nation's youth is so fucked up? It's because of guys like my dad. It's because there's a whole generation of men who came under the attack of Satan and bought into Satan's cowardice and laziness. And said, yeah, those kids will be all right. This is America, man. There's welfare, there's food stamps, it'll be all right. It's public school, man. It's all paid for by the taxpayer. F the taxpayer, man. I'm going to be happy. I got to be happy, man. And you know what makes me happy? Blinding myself from reality. I'm going to pour this whiskey all over reality so that my eyes can't see it anymore. And I'm going to keep doing these drugs so I can feel like I'm alive. I'm going to keep banging all these women so that I can feel like I'm alive. And you know what that gets you? Dying in a strange bed surrounded by strangers. Surrounded by people that you never opened up to. With a life unlived and a song unsung. And nobody will ever tell the stories of that man because he never had any. I can't think of a worse fate. Live your life, raise your kids. For you fathers out there, you know what? Today, December 12th, happy Father's Day to you and Merry Christmas. If you're a father, every day is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you. Be a father. You concerned that you're not a good father? Well, okay, there's no such thing as a good man. Right? But can you recognize that you're not a good father? I can. Right? I get angry at my 16-month-old son. Can you imagine that? What kind of piece of shit am I? Getting angry. He's a baby. Getting angry at him. You know what I mean? Like I'm constantly, well not constantly, but like I'm periodically checking myself. Like, dude, you're getting angry at a 16-month-old baby. What the fuck's wrong with you? Can you admit it? You know what I mean? Happy Father's Day. Are you a bad father? Okay, good. Right? At least you can admit it. At least you can take something to God and say, God, look, I'm a bad father. Can you please come into this broken place and repair it? Because if there's a lot at stake here, and if you don't fix this, it's not going to get fixed. I can't fix it. I'm a broken man. Never such a prayer was lifted up to the heavens by my father. So, anyways, I think the whole point of what I was trying to get to is one, I think I got some issues I got to deal with. Please do not send me messages saying, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't lose anything." Please don't send me those messages. Please, 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 please. I know it's awkward. I know it's awkward. Awkward. Please don't send me those messages. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, just listen to everything I just said. Like, please don't send me those messages. It's just gonna make me feel like bad that I made you feel bad, that I put you in an awkward place. And two, and I think this is truly the takeaway from this whole hour, is don't ever put yourself in a position, don't ever leave yourself open to being out of duct tape. Right? Like I said, like when you reach for the duct tape, man, and it's not there, it's like you have to, when you reach for the duct tape, it means you need duct tape. Don't leave yourself open to that. You get your lazy ass down to you know, Home Depot or True Value or Lowe's, and you buy the economy, right? I think you probably even get them at Costco for probably, you know, $10 off. You get the economy duct tape, man. Don't leave yourself open to that kind of bad juju, man. I'm telling you. When you need the duct tape, you need the duct tape. Everybody knows that. Everybody. That's it. That's the show for today. God bless you guys. Happy Father's Day and Merry Christmas to all.